Dig it.
Slow drag with remedy. I've always felt that too much attention, too much credence is given to the term writer's block. Nearly every writing class I've ever taken has addressed this issue by asking the same question. What do you do when you have writer's block? It's never if, it's always when. And invariably the answers are predictable. Clean the house, go for a walk, procrastinate in some form or fashion, or, sadly, give up entirely. In a similar vein, what time of day do you write? Where do you write? How many words do you set as your daily, monthly goal? Bright-eyed organizational plans of action seem to become overtaken by excuses for not reaching a certain goal and for not being able to write at a certain place at a certain time. A more streamlined, helpful, and humane question posed by a well-intended professor, in my opinion, could be, in addition to procrastination, in addition to arbitrary word count, and needing a specific place to work, what other ways do you invent and or avoid self-sabotaging yourself as a writer? Seriously, why resist these traditional and shared traits found across the entire writing spectrum when leaning into them seems much more productive and far less self-flagellating? Some writers may respond well to pressure, to deadlines, and to other forms of impending catastrophe. I'll give you that. But I do question if they were conditioned into it or if they come by it naturally. Speaking for myself, I'd rather feel excited about what I'm going to write rather than hate myself for not having written it sooner. The house needed to be cleaned anyway, and instead of wrestling with failure, my imagination is free to explore the recesses of my character's psyche as I reorganize the closet or scrub the tub. This hasn't always been my philosophy, of course. I had to go through a few bouts of traditional inferiority and self-sabotage before I realized that the core ingredient of the creative process doesn't have to be undue pressure, but rather it can come from a place of kindness and encouragement. I know that sounds a bit Pollyanna-ish, but consider, we have an entire world that'll happily tear us to shreds. Why must we join in on their festivities in order to accomplish our goals? Getting angry with ourselves for cleaning the house instead of writing is the same as cursing our daily commute because we should be at work instead. The writing process doesn't start when we sit down to type out our first words. In a writing class once, we were prompted to describe the house we grew up in. I wrote at length about old newspapers and how their ink starts to feel tacky as it rubs off on your fingers as you wrap dishes in glasses and place them in cardboard moving boxes. When pressed by the professor to, quote, write at least something about one room, I went deeper. I went deeper about the tacky feeling and how there was nothing indelible about any place I'd ever lived. The dirty walls where blackened fingers had touched were easily washed clean, erasing all evidence of my time there. In addition to not being talked into having writer's block, I also firmly believe it's equally as important to block out the low-frequency hum of mediocrity that threatens our singular creative visions. Now that's the sort of writer's block I can get behind. My name is Remedy, and this is an appreciation. This is an exploration of linguistics, language, poetry, and clever wordplay as framed by the peerless poetry of the modern-day master, Elvis Costello. Today's slow drag is with Damnation's Cellar from the Juliet Letters, released in 1993. The songwriting and musical arrangement is credited to Elvis Costello's birth name. This is one of the very few songs on this album that is credited solely to Mr. Costello. Capitalizing upon the rare voice and string quartet combination, pairing Elvis Costello's angelic voice with the lush sound of the Bronsky Quartet, the Juliet Letters was inspired by a newspaper article about an Italian academic who replied to real letters written to the fictional Juliet Capulet. This entire collaboration started with mutual respect and one simple prompt: write a letter. It can be any sort of letter: a love letter, a suicide note, a chain letter, a form letter, a letter of regret for not having written sooner. Did anybody notice over marmalade and eggs, in between the princess's legs, what with wars and floods and beggars, not to mention stocks and shares? Well, if you have a moment to spare, can you write and reassure me that I have seen that they're constructing a time machine, and there will be no need for the obituary pages. We can have any hero from the bygone ages, till the truth emerges and argument rages. As quoted in the liner notes from the Juliet Letters, Damnation, Cellar purports itself as a letter that is a, quote, glimpse of a fantastic kind of immortality, unquote. This helps explain the time machine's purpose. No obituary pages, which connotes no future either. Just history relived again and again, maybe. As for the sheer poetry of that first stanza, please correct me if I've gotten this wrong, but what I hear is a flowing introduction that uses a sophisticated and restrained 10-line rhyme scheme of triplets that bookend couplets. So the first, AAA, eggs, legs, and the slant rhyme of beggars. And then we have two B's, share and spare, two C's, scene and machine. And then ending with another triplet of DDD, pages, ages, and rages. This journeyman level of rhyme is augmented by its intrigue, its assertions, and its suspicions. In addition to the wonderful references in this piece, before he goes deeper into the story, the chorus becomes a reminder of the title, Damnation's Cellar. The major and the minor turn from tallow into tar. But it doesn't just remind. Listen carefully as it uses a stunning syntactic symbolism to denote descending. Should we leave them in their place down in Damnation's cellar? It is truly amazing to hear how we've been walked down a rickety basement stairs into the bowels of good intentions. And then there's more details of this immortality to come. When any form of deity that you might enjoy can be conjured with a test tube and a flame, if it's out there, then science can explain it, or at least remove the blame. And if there's anyone you'd like to see again, speak up quickly. Send us back to Vinci so we don't have to ponder the maddening smile of La Giaconda. A maddening smile can only mean one painting, of course, and if Mona Lisa has a last name that I've never thought of, then how many other tidbits have I failed to ponder? I'm about to learn a couple of more before this piece ends. The critics say Nijinsky the dancer, of course, while the punters would probably prefer the horse. You'll find it's quicker than history, cheaper than divorce. Here's a bit of English to English translation. Punter is British slang for a gambler, a risk taker, a customer. So the punter's preference seems to be spot on in its assumption, especially when you consider that Nijinsky, the best male ballet dancer of the 20th century, wasn't the only Nijinsky referenced in these lines. The last thoroughbred horse to have won Britain's Triple Crown was indeed named Nijinsky. He won it in 1970, an accomplishment that took 35 years to achieve, a feat that hasn't been replicated since. Run at a longer distance over a longer span of time makes the British version of the Triple Crown that much more difficult, making the feat that much more impressive. And while this genius turn of phrase sinks in, let's hear that gorgeous chorus again. The major and the minor turn from tallow into tar. Should we leave them in their place down in Damnation's cellar? Let's carry on now back to the list of wishes for the time machine. Bring back Liberace or Ollie and Stan. Shakespeare will have to wait his turn. Elvis Presley and Puccini shall return. I suppose we live and learn, though it's hard to believe as we cheerfully burn. The 4 lines that follow the first line that ends in a slant rhyme uses straightforward words for its rhyme: turn, return, learn, and burn. Yet it's so sophisticated that it seems to merit the expression of how the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Naming 5 heavy hitters is no mean feat, to be sure, and note yet another reference to Elvis. It's curious. Some will call for justice. There are murders to solve. What about Hitler, or at least Lee Harvey Oswald? Give us this day and everything we squander. Anyone beautiful, somebody blonder. They'll never please mankind, so lie back and enjoy it. Stop press. They've just decided to destroy it. There is so much to respect and to linger over in this stanza. Curious and justice is but a prelude to Solve and Oswald, leveling off with squander and blonder. And again, we have a word rhymed with itself, but this time with a twist: enjoy it, destroy it. And there's an honorable mention for the alliteration of at least Lee Harvey, and the subtle callback to the confusion over which Mr. Oswald, less than 0, floats in the Elvis Costello zeitgeist. All of this in an AA, BB, CC, DD pattern. I'm in awe. The use of the truly horrifying and dated lie back and enjoy it drives home the immortality at a cost argument. You can have lunch with Italian opera composer Puccini before hitting the theater with Will, sure, but you might hear expressions and encounter attitudes that in the real world will have hopefully been lost to history. The major and the minor turn from tallow into tar. Should we leave them in their place down in Damnation's cellar? This syntactic symbolism is a joy to behold. Dig it. Again, this has been a slow drag with Damnation Cellar from 1993's The Juliet Letters. Spawned from a writing prompt, what a paragon of form and function, of poetry in its purest form, and of course the angelic voice and the lush instrumentation that fills it out to be accessible in a world of popular culture. I'm still amazed by the turn of phrase of Nijinsky and the ease with which the dancer and the horse are compared so effortlessly. The structure, the alliteration, the truth, the lies, and the fanciful thinking about what it means to live forever. It means living in the past, if this is any indication. But of course, that's only but one interpretation, of course. Each slow drag with what I thought was familiar material, I continued to gain deeper insight. It's just a joy. And in recent years, I've noticed that Elvis Costello looks like he's singing with his eyes closed sometimes. I imagine he's composing new songs while singing existing songs. To quote the coolest man ever,
"What's he building in there? What's he building in there? We have a right to know."
Thank you so much for finding this appreciation, this exploration of linguistics, of language, and masterful poetry, all framed by the peerless poetry of the modern-day master, Elvis Costello. I encourage you to check the show notes for links to the actual song, as well as links to references made in this episode. For your convenience, there is also a companion blog with a transcript and other references you might find interesting. If you like this appreciation, please subscribe to this podcast and share it with other language lovers. Please get in contact with comments or suggestions or interpretations of your own. I'd love to hear them. Thank you. So, until next time, adieu, my little ballyhoo. Slow drag with